He's back and he's still wearing the same clothes. Though I'm sure they've been carefully laundered by Alfred. Now then friends, we all know Batman is a superhero, but here he is faced with such fiends as Catwoman, the Penguin and the oddly named Red Triangle Circus Gang. Remember the Red Hand Gang? Well, it's not them. And even the Dark Knight needs a helping hand. That's where you come in, if you buy the game, of course. And where the hell's Robin when you need him? Oh, he left to set up that restaurant, didn't he? Not surprisingly, the latest shenanigans take place in the Caped Crusader's home, Gotham City. Not that he lives in the center, the Batcave is located in a salubrious suburb. And a potent cocktail the action is too, not. Well, Wayne's World is back, with elements of beat 'em up and shoot 'em up as well as the usual platform horsing around. It's a serious business. 5 levels of madness await as the Batmeister journeys across the great city battling against acrobats, stiltwalkers, and even mad motorcyclists. Weapons available to quell the fools include the bat rope, batarang, very useful, sometimes, time bomb and bat disc. Batman Returns lacks excitement and atmosphere, and it seems the money was spent to acquiring the official license rather than on the game itself. Graphically, it's poor, and even though around a tenner less than most games, it's still a tremendous disappointment. Batman himself is small and extremely tough to control, and by Jove, the in-game music is appalling. Very sad. Batman is my favorite comic book character, and pretty much one of my favorite literary characters ever. It's a character capable of great storytelling, and things beyond just comic books. Batman has had great success in film, obviously, television, and when the stars aligned, video games. Even if Batman isn't a favorite of yours or anything, just think about the concept of him, and think about the possibilities you have when translating that to an interactive medium like video games. The Batman character and property is a shoo-in for all kinds of great and different video games, and he's had his share of hits over the long years with games that have varying kinds of gameplay. At least he has a better track record than many other comic book superheroes. Batman has the great platforming game on the NES adapted from the 1989 Tim Burton film. Even if it isn't completely accurate, it's challenging and very fun. The Genesis adaptation is a pretty solid game, even if it is a good deal easier and it features slower gameplay overall. Batman Returns for Sega CD had cool driving sections and stuff in it. The most recent Batman game, Arkham Asylum, had good fighting mechanics, gadget functionality, and tracking segments. This iteration of Batman Returns for the PC that ran on MS-DOS, however, was a graphic adventure game that was made by a team or company called Spirit of Discovery. With the advent of DOSBox, a lot of us have been able to go back again, and play a lot of the old classic PC games that ran strictly on MS-DOS or had Windows 95 functionality too, but it still didn't work anyway. A lot of these games still hold up really well today, others don't, this being one of them. I figured Batman Returns would be a real neat game cause one of my favorite game genres is the graphic adventure genre, and Batman could totally work as a graphic adventure type of game with simplistic fighting mechanics, detective work, interrogation, you name it, all the qualities needed are there. But this game just didn't turn out well where it really counts. Really, the interface and stuff is real clean on this game. You don't ever have a HUD or anything on your screen until you explore Gotham City, and you can see all your gadgets you've picked out for your utility belt loadout. It works out perfectly, and there are no real problems with this kind of setup. Options for this game, however, are very limited, there is no way to change controls because of the way this game is designed, which I'll get to shortly, and you can't really change up any of your sound hardware settings in the game either, and you've got to use an external utility that came with the game. This isn't much of a problem, as some DOS games have been known to come like this from time to time, but many others allow you to change settings like that in the regular game options screen. It's just not very convenient. The story and writing is a very big and important part of these kinds of games. Unfortunately, this one disappoints in that category. It's pretty much just a straight-up adaptation of the film's own story. That in of itself isn't necessarily a problem. In fact, that should be expected when buying a game based off of a feature film. My problem with this is that this is all the story really is. They didn't take any real liberties at all or added their own bits to the story, when a game like this really calls for something like that to help fill the rest out. This will also directly tie into my analysis of the gameplay. This is really where the biggest ball was dropped. When you can finally take control of Batman and start playing the game, you start in the Batcave, and you have 9 days to finish the game in game time. You start at 6 p.m. on each day, and I assume that you're forced to go back home at 6 a.m. I normally always finish my business sooner, when you're out on the streets. You basically have to figure out the Penguin's plot and stop him. Now then, while you're in the Batcave, you have 4 options to choose from when it comes to what to do. You can go to the computer, which opens up many other options like watching the news to get direction on where to go. Fix your sound options. You can enter new evidence that you collect while out in Gotham into your database and view it and extrapolate from it. View videos when you collect tapes out on the town or transmit them, and finally you can look at a database of supposedly important people Batman has kept tabs on in Gotham, from city officials, businessmen and women, criminals, and people to watch. The thing about this database is, it's just fluff and none of it actually matters or amounts to anything. It doesn't serve to enrich the story at all, and it never leads into anything. There is a vault where Batman keeps his suits, which each have an offensive and defensive capability measurement. Each of the 3 in the vault have 100% at maximum, and there is no difference in them. You pretty much treat them like you would lives. I'm not real sure what the difference is when you burn out a Batsuit's offensive capability, because it appears that Batman fights like he normally does. Another flaw in the game design I'll get to later, but I do know when the defensive capability is low, Batman can lose a fight and he'll be forced to retreat back home, and just because you lose that fight the game is over. You can also adjust your gadget load out at the vault, which you won't do too much of because a lot of the other gadgets like smoke bombs and knockout gas have only one use and they're gone from your inventory, unlike any of the batarangs, which you can use all the time except in the same fight. Once you've used them in one fight, you have to wait until it's over to use them again. The other worthless item is the scanner. I've never figured out what it's for, and I've not ran into an instance where I had to use it. The other options are the garage and Wayne Manor. You go to the garage so you can travel out in Gotham City in the Batmobile. That's pretty much the only purpose it serves. Wayne Manor also only serves one purpose. You just go there so Batman can sleep and end the day, then you go to the next day at 6 p.m., down in the Batcave all over again. This game came out after many other graphic adventure games already were released and failed to follow suit with certain standards that were established with other games like Monkey Island that just would have made this game better overall. For instance, you virtually have no dialogue with any characters just by choosing to do so, which is very odd because you always see Batman visiting people or talking to them or whatever in just about any medium you see him in. There is only one character in this game that works like that, and he sells fish. The only people you end up talking to normally are thugs, usually after tying them up to interrogate them, the Penguin and Catwoman. and with the last two you never have any say in the dialogue at all. You basically just watch their talking head spout lines from the movie. You never talk to Selina Kyle, Max Schreck or any of the other characters from the movie. Even when you can interrogate thugs, it's not handled as well as it could have been. Once you tie them up, the game will show a splash screen of Batman with the guy he just apprehended, and it'll ask, "Do you want to interrogate?" Which is very pointless, because yes, you will always want to interrogate. Otherwise you'll never know what is going on other than when you watch the news, which basically tells you where to go when stuff is happening, and the only way to interrogate people in the first place is to tie them up, so why bother asking? Anyways, when you go to interrogate someone, three options usually come up. You have explanation, plans, and location. Another part of the bad design comes into play here, because for some reason you can only choose one of these and the bad guy gets away, and you basically have a 1 out of 3 chance that you will ask this guy something and he'll give you the right answer. If you answer right, he'll tell you something kind of useful or give you a clue or something. Why can't you ask him anything else, or make these interrogations interactive? More importantly, why does Batman let him get away? So this game completely fails in terms of dialogue sequence and having the chance to tell more of a story, but on top of all this it even fails to have any kind of engaging fighting scenes or combat. When you get into a fight you have absolutely no kind of real time or control on Batman's actions other than persuading him to throw or use something from his utility belt. The only bit of control you have is changing how hard Batman is fighting. There's an easy setting, which means you're just letting yourself get hit, normal, which is just you being hit slightly less than easy, and fierce, which is you beating guys up and taking minimal damage. So, what is the point of these other fighting modes if they only get you killed? It just completely baffles me that the developers thought that there was no problem with you having almost no input on the combat at all, and that people wouldn't mind just watching a fight play out. This is especially annoying when you run into the Penguin or Catwoman and you're forced to fight them because your gadgets are completely ineffective on them, so all you can do is fight hand to hand with them. Sometimes they'll end up landing quite a few hits on you as well, and you're forced to just sit there and take it. The rest of the gameplay though is just you checking the same locations over and over again for clues that people apparently leave out in the open for Batman to purloin. That's it, really lame interrogation stuff, uncontrollable fighting, and uninspired, uncreative, detective work. The sad part of all this is, the evidence-gathering, detective work was most of the original game content they came up with. One of the few positives outside of all the poor design decisions and whatnot, the backdrops look fairly moody and decent, and character sprites for the actual game world designed well. The actions of the sprites and all look pretty smooth and convincing, and the splash screens that show the really big and detailed sprite artwork with the characters close-up look quite good as well. In reality though, I don't think the developers had too big of a budget, because while I did say the backdrops look decent, at the same time you've seen much better from other games like Monkey Island or anything else. They look a little too much sometimes like concept art instead of actually being part of the game. Another downside to all this is that for some reason whenever there was a scene that was pretty much ripped from the movie, it was all done in this comic book looking setup with really poor artwork. I would have been fine with some more of those splash screens with detailed artwork and limited movement. It just wouldn't have looked as tacky and inconsistent. Not too many complaints about this department, it works pretty well. The sound effects are pretty good other than Batman's sonic batarang sounding like a car alarm. I'm not joking, they pretty much just recorded a car alarm for that effect. The music sticks pretty close to Danny Elfman's arrangements from the film, and for the most part it's done pretty well. But other than those songs and a few original ones, there aren't that many music tracks in the game, which is kind of disappointing. The original music also doesn't mesh very well with the Elfman-inspired arrangements. A lot of it sounds too cartoonish or just like it would belong in another game entirely. This game pretty much fails at every important level for a game of this genre. Its story is pedestrian in terms of being thought out and executed, the scenario is uninspired and lazy, and the gameplay decisions are just awful. It really makes me wonder if any of the original designers for this game managed to play any of the other stuff that came out before this game did. King's Quest, Monkey Island, Zack McCracken, I could go on and on. Some people will probably think I was wrong to compare this game to the likes of those anyway, but that's not my point. My point is that those games established standards to be followed from a gameplay and design standpoint and from a general quality standpoint. I wrote this review because there are virtually no reviews for this game at all on the internet. I know people have played it. I've seen playthroughs on YouTube, there's a guide for it here on this website. It does have an odd rating here or there on a website every now and then, but I wrote this review to get the word out. Don't waste your time on this game, especially if you are a big fan of graphic adventures or Batman, it'll disappoint you twofold then. The sad part about all this is that it could have probably been a pretty good game. Just the concept of a Batman graphic adventure sounds like a really solid game for that genre, and the guys at Spirit of Discovery completely dropped the ball.